in the second part, we're going to try to add a mouth to our face. If you are using the project guide linked in your Schoology assignment, we are on this 5th page called Add a Mouth. And they're going to show you a variety of different ways that you might make a mouth. So in this first section that says create a mouth from overlapping circles, you could create 2 circles that layer on top of each other. This mouth here would have started as a black circle, and then they layered on top of that an orange circle, and that orange is exactly the same color as the face, so you don't see it. It's almost like we were able to make a cutout to make this shape of a mouth. So that's one thing that you could try. I'm going to use rectangles because we haven't used rectangles yet, and that might be another shape that you want to play with. So in the project guide, they also walk through a couple of examples. This was making like a mask on their face. And then down here, they also had this more of like a robot kind of face with a mouth that was made up of rectangular teeth. So I think we'll play with the teeth a little bit. But let's go ahead. Oh, and then another kind of fun thing they show you too is triangles and how you might use triangles to create some fangs. So maybe we might play with that too. That could be fun to do. So actually, let's do that. So we'll make a mouth, kind of very skinny rectangular mouth maybe. And then maybe I'll show you the overlapping to make our eyes do something similar to this one here so that you can see how that is as well. All right, let's start with the mouth. So back to our project, making sure to keep our run at the bottom of our project at all times. And run needs to be all the way up against the left side of the screen. But everything else that we're drawing, we're going to keep inside this draw function, lined up with that first background line. So we are going to click down, and to draw a rectangle, we use RECT. And then inside our parentheses is very similar to our ellipse. So it's going to be X coordinate, Y coordinate, length, and width. And get that out. Length and width. Except for rectangle, the difference is the X and Y coordinate is going to be the top left corner of your rectangle. So if I want a rectangle to go across the face here, I'm going to choose an XY coordinate that's here because it's telling the computer where to start drawing the shape, where to start drawing that rectangle. For our ellipse, our XY was the center of the shape. So rectangle is going to be slightly different. All right. Oh, and we need to pick a color. Actually, you know what? I'll stick with black. Was the last color that we used. I'm going to stick with black. So in that case, I don't need to pick out a color. Again, I can just start drawing my rectangle. And we said we're going to try to kind of place that or start drawing our rectangle from like off to the left side here, maybe a little bit. So again, the X coordinates start at 0 here and then count up. Our eye, the center of our left eye was at 155. We could try and line that up maybe. So then that would be 155. Maybe I'll make it just slightly smaller. So maybe we'll say, let's see, we're counting up. So 155, let's try 160. So 160, and then the y-axis starts at 0 and counts up, even though we're going down the line, so up. So if we say over 160, and then this is 200, 250, this should be 300, so 250 is kind of low. We'll say 230. Let's just try it and see what happens. So what did I say? 160, comma, and then I'm estimating down to maybe like 230. It's just an estimate. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like, so we'll just do that to start. And then let's see how long they made their rectangle. I'm just curious. So their mouth line, they did 60, comma, 5. So 60 long and 5 wide. And let's run that and see what that looks like. Oh, there we go. We got a line. Kind of want it to be a bit longer. And I also don't really want it outlined like that. So you can just kind of see that it's outlined. We can get rid of that. So we're going to use just above our rectangle here. I'm going to click the tab key. Okay, I'm going to say no stroke, I think. Let's try that. That should get rid of the outline. Okay, and then I want this to be longer than 60. Let's try 65 and see if that works. That got rid of the outline. Let's do 70. I'm going to change that again. I want it a bit longer. Almost. I'm not totally happy with that. I'm going to try 75 long. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right. So I've got my kind of thin rectangular mouth. All right. And then now we'll also learn how to draw a triangle, and we'll do that for teeth. So I'm going to, again, go to the end of my rectangle line here. For me, that's line 29. Hit enter, enter, or return, return. Okay. All right, so I'm going to look back at our project guide here, and we see that in order to draw a triangle, we're going to be writing triangle, and then you'll see quite a few more arguments inside the triangle parentheses here. So that's because these first two numbers are an X and Y location for your first point on your triangle, and then another XY location for the second point or second vertices, or vertex, and then a third XY for the third vertex on your triangle. All right. So we're going to have to, since our points are a bit different than in the project guide, we're going to kind of have to figure this out a bit. So we'll go triangle, and then I know that I started my rectangle at X160, and it is 5 points wide. So that should mean that 165 would be this bottom point here. So let's try 165. That's X. And then, oops, I messed that up. So I'm already got confused too. So we're going left and right for X. So that's going to stay at 160. That was where we started our line. So 160, I'm going to keep the same. And then our Y point is the one that we're going to have starting at the bottom of that rectangle. And since our rectangle is 5 points wide, then my Y coordinate is going to be just 5 down from that original starting point for our Y. So our original starting point for our Y is at 230, but we're going to go down 5 to start our triangle. So 235. Okay. That's just one point of our triangle. So let's see now, how wide do we want our triangle to be? So maybe, I don't know. I'm going to guess like 10 across. Our entire rectangle is 75 across. So maybe we'll try over 10. So maybe I want the center of my triangle to be like here maybe. So if our first X is 160, let's try the next point at 170. So just over 10 steps, but then down lower. So maybe, I don't know, let's try 250Y. And then, so we've got point 1, 2, 3. So the third point for our triangle. So that's going to be, let's see, this is our X. We did 160, 170. Let's try 180 for our third point. Okay. And then we want it to touch the bottom of our rectangle here again. And we already determined that the bottom line of our rectangle is down at 235. So this should be 235 again. I do not know what this is going to look like. So let's see if we like that for our left tooth. Oh, not bad. Okay, that's pretty good. So now there's a couple ways we could do our second tooth, or a third if you wanted it, but you could just go in and you could create another triangle and then figure out your points over here. So 3 points over here for your triangle. Or you can also use translate to create another triangle and then slide it along the grid to a new point. So if we take a look at our project guide, it's in this section here, still on the add a mouth page, but I'm going to scroll down to this green box that introduces translate for changing an X coordinate. And if you open up this white box that says translating visuals, you can get some more information here. But basically what it's going to do is after you draw a shape, if you use translate, it will then move that shape to a new coordinate. So here it's telling us that in this example, it's going to move the shape 50 to the right and then 50 up after each rectangle is drawn. So this is going to tell it X, move along the X axis, move along the Y axis. So why don't we try that? In that case, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate our triangle. So our first triangle is already drawn. We're just going to copy and paste. And then we're going to have that second triangle move across the screen. So I'm going to have it slide down the mouth here. Our triangle total is 20 steps long because we started at 160, did our other point at 170, and this point at 180, which is about 20 steps from this. That should be, if this is 180 and this is 200, that means we're 20 steps here. And then another 20 would take us to this point here. So let's start by saying translate. So first is along the x-axis. We want it to go to the right. Let's try 40 steps and see where that lands. And I don't want it to move on the y-axis at all. So I should be able to put a 0 here. And let's try that and see what happens. And I don't see anything happening. So let's try that one more time. Okay, so we need to, looking back at the instructions, we need to flip this. So first I'm going to draw that second triangle for my right tooth, and then I'm going to use translate to move it. So let's try that again. Oh, okay, I thought I had that fixed. Let's try one more time. I'm going to move that translate. I'll put it up here. Okay. Try one more time. There we go. Okay. Although that is still not far enough over there. I want it to go a little further. So maybe let's increase that 40 maybe to 60 steps on the x-axis. And let's try it again. Oh, too far. Okay. I'm just estimating to see if I can get that on the end there now, because I miscalculated. There we go. And now we've got 2 triangle teeth. And I'm just going to make a note here that we use translate to move our triangle along the X